1. All right, so we're recording now. I'm going to do the lesson with you guys now, and then we can look at some of the questions for the test if you want afterwards. All right. A lot of you will have noticed that your grade has tanked this week. Almost all of you have Fs in my class now, and that's because the parallels paper. Only Yash, Michael Lou, Tiffany, I think you're the only 3 who turned it in, I think so. Yeah, I forget. I think out of all of you, I got like 10 turned in on time. So everyone else got zeros. You're going to want to fix that because it's, worth a lot of points. It's worth a lot of points. So you're going to want to fix that. Oh, I think Ilha, I think yours was in too, wasn't it? Yeah, I think so. Anyway, the ones that I read were good. The ones I read were good. They were good. They no real serious errors or anything. It was good. I liked them all. I liked them and they were good. So you're going to want to get them turned in as soon as possible. It is not my intention for you to have homework over the break. I do not want you to have homework over the break, but I kind of feel like if you didn't do your paper and you waited till the break, then that's on you, right? I feel like that's on you. That's not on me. All right. The other thing is, because next week is our last week before the break, we will not be able to finish South Africa before the break. I wanted to get it done, but by losing Fridays and then being shut down for 2 weeks, and then the days that I had to miss to take care of my wife in the hospital and stuff, and with my dad in the hospital, like we've lost like 35% of our class. We've lost like 35% of our class time. So I tried my best to keep us on schedule, but it's just not gonna happen. So it means you're gonna have a test on South Africa after the break as well. So you'll have your first test today, and then the second one will be after the break. And I normally don't like to do that, but this is the way it is. Welcome to 2020. Sorry, guys. Sorry. We'll just have to adjust the best we can. Okay. Cool. Fair enough. All right. The test is available for you. The test is already online. It's on Canvas. I need you to have the test done by Thursday night. Okay, done by Thursday night. If you don't have it done by Thursday night, then I will reset it with all new questions that you haven't seen. Okay, so if you want to use the questions that I've already given you, and then you need to get it done before Thursday night. Okay, are we all clear? So when I come in to work on my Friday morning, I want to be able to grade them, right? And so everyone that isn't available for me when I come to work Friday morning, they'll get zeros. And then if you're going to retake the test in the future, you get a completely new set of questions that you have never seen before. Okay? If I were you, I would like to avoid that, I think. Yeah, Ro, got a question?
Just out of curiosity, with those retakes, which score do you take?
The higher score usually. Yeah. The higher score. Yeah. So, okay, I think we're good. Do you guys have questions about any of that stuff before we get going? Going once, going twice. Oh, you should have a question. The code for the test. There is no code. No code. Just do it. Just log in and just do it. Okay? Cool. When does the test have to be done by? Thursday night. Okay? Thursday night. All right. I strongly recommend that you do that. All right. So let's move on to the lecture part of the lesson here. All right. So I think this is letter Z, if I remember correctly. Is that right? Does that sound right to you guys? What do you have? Manvith, what do you got? What's the last letter you got?
Mine's a little off, I think, but I'm at Z actually. Yeah, I'm at Z. Yeah.
Okay. Yash, how about you, man?
Mine's Y, so I guess.
The last one you did was Y, so this one is Z. All right, let's go. Z it is. All right, Z as in Zulu. All right, so the Treason trial of 1956. Treason trial of 1956. This is a big turning point in the anti-apartheid movement. Okay, basically what happened is in 1956, we have the Defiance campaign going all through the 40s and 50s. And in 1956, the South African police basically arrested everyone they could. Okay, they arrested all of the leadership that they could, the leadership of the ANC, of the PAC, of every group that they could, labor groups. They basically arrested all of the leadership, everyone they could find. Okay, and they arrested 156 people, and they put them all on trial for treason. Now, the excuse that the government uses to do this is the Opposition to Communism Act. That's not what the name is. Gosh, what's the name of the act? It's the I'm drawing a blank. It's the, where is it? Suppression of Communism Act. That's the word I was looking for. It's the Suppression of Communism Act. So they, under the Suppression of Communism Act, they're able to suppress the Communist Party, and they basically just say there are communists within the leadership, and so they're all guilty, right? The cops arrest them. Well, as it turns out, the judges and the justice system is opposed to the justice system is going to stand opposed to this, because the justice system is going to demand this thing called evidence, and the cops don't have any. Right? As it turns out, judges who have dedicated their entire life to the practice of the law and the rule of law aren't so eager to just throw it out. Right? We see this in the United States also quite often, right? The judges are oftentimes, making rulings that the popular people of the United States are opposed to, right? We see this often, right? Well, South Africa is the same way. South Africa is the same way. It has a long tradition of judges and courts. So what ends up happening is, over the course of this trial, the trial goes from 156 people, defendants who are arrested. The judges throw out like 70 of them right away. And it drops all the way down to 92 cases, because they throw out like 70 of these cases right away. Okay. And then over the course of the next couple of years, because this trial takes like 5 years, over the course of the next couple of years, this gets whittled down again, all the way down to just 30 people. Right? And so by the end of it, it's only 30 people. This is profoundly embarrassing to the police force. Okay. Eventually, what's going to happen? There's some other stuff that's happening in the middle of the trial, and we'll put that into the next letter, right? But eventually, what happens is all 30 are acquitted. So what it means is all 156 people are found to be innocent, and they're just acquitted. Okay. This is really embarrassing to the police. Really embarrassing to the police. This trial is famous. This trial is all over the news. This trial is all over, it's all over the newspapers. It's all over international newspapers. It's on the television news, right? And here's the South African police looking like a bunch of bozos who are just arresting people they don't like just because they don't like them, right? It's pretty embarrassing. It's really embarrassing, okay? So it has some long-term consequences for 3 groups, okay? So you put long-term consequences of the trial. Okay, consequence number 1 is for the anti-apartheid movement. The anti-apartheid activists are going to become emboldened. They're going to become emboldened, right? Because the police have been exposed, and so they're going to say, hey, our methods are working, let's keep going, okay? Group number 2 is the cops. How do you think the police are going to respond? Ilha, what do you think, man?
They're probably going to respond badly to this embarrassment.
Yeah, you've been in my class long enough to know that the answer is pretty much always the police respond badly, right? Right? My class is not going to give you a lot of faith in the police, I think. Right? So, yeah, Ilha's absolutely right. The police are going to become more brutal. And they're going to be using more brutality, because they feel embarrassed, and so now they're going to lash out again, right? It's kind of like a bully, right? If a bully goes around beating people up, and then somebody trips the bully and they laugh at him, that bully's going to go take it out on some weak kids later on, right? That's how bullies work, right? Mike's like, yeah, that sounds right. Michael do. He's like, yeah, that's what I was like when I was a bully. Yeah. Okay, Mike, we'll leave your bully in the past, okay? All right, so group number one, the African groups, the Black groups, the anti-apartheid groups are emboldened. Group number two, the police, are also going to be emboldened towards more brutality, okay? Group number three is the international community. The international community is going to look at this as an embarrassment. And they're going to start looking at South Africa and they're going to start going, what the hell's wrong with South Africa? Up until this point, most of the world has been ignoring South Africa, right? They're perfectly fine to buy all those sweet, sweet diamonds, perfectly fine to buy all those sweet, sweet diamonds and all those sweet, sweet precious metals, right? And they're just not asking a lot of questions. Stacks of money hide questions really well, right? Like if there's enough money, no one's asking questions. They're just, changing money, right? But in this case, this is so high profile and it's all over the news that the whole world is like, wait a minute, South Africa is super messed up. What the hell's going on down there, right? Particularly what country? What's the most important country for South Africa? The most important foreign country? Tyler, what do you think? What's the most important country to South Africa?
I have no idea.
You have no idea? It's Nepal, probably? No? Drew, what do you think,
I
man?
don't know.
Is it the United Kingdom?
Yeah, of course it's the UK, right? It's the UK. So let's put this in here. This is particularly the point where the UK starts to turn away from South Africa, okay? South Africa gained its independence and the UK has been kind of on the fence about South Africa for a while. This is really going to start this is really going to start the process of the UK moving away from South Africa, right? Further and further away. And the UK is going to start looking at this and they're going to be like, I don't think these guys need to be in the Commonwealth. I don't think we need to have a relationship with these guys, right? Like the UK is really going to start reevaluating South Africa, okay? All right. Do we have questions about the trial before we move on? It's basically like a who's who got arrested. It's like all of the leadership got arrested, like all over the place. Ruth First and Joe Slovo are up here. Walter Sisulu's up there. Here's Nelson Mandela right here in the middle. They all got together and took a picture after the trial. Took a big old like a class photo. All right, let's go to AA. That was Z, this is AA. AA is the Sharpeville massacre. Okay, so this is 1960. This is during the trial. Okay, this is happening during the trial. In 1960, Sharpeville is a town outside of Johannesburg. It's a town outside of Johannesburg. And while the trial is going on, and the courts are like kicking people out and throwing cases out of the trial and stuff, right? While this is happening, the Black groups are becoming more emboldened. And so here they are. They decide to meet in Sharpeville and they decide that they're going to burn their passbooks. Wentao, what is their passbook? What does that mean? What is that?
Is it like a passport of sorts?
It is a passport of sorts, but it's not a passport for international travel. What is it for?
It's to allow interstate travel between cities.
Yeah, interprovince travel, right? And it also contains the ethnic identifiers saying, this guy is a Zulu, or this guy's a Xhosa, or this guy's Pedi, or this guy is white, or whatever, right? So it's that. Okay, so they get together and they throw all their passbooks into a big pile. They're going to burn them, and the cops come out and the cops react. Now, the cops are going to politely ask them all to pick up their books, and they're all going to go home. Right? No, you guys don't seem to believe that. Yeah. All right. So the cops, of course, react the way that cops always seem to react in my class, and the cops start to beat the crowd. They get their clubs out and they start to fight. It gets worse. As the cops start to do this, the people start to run away. The cops put their clubs away, pull their guns out, and open fire on the crowd. The cops end up shooting. They end up killing about 180 people. I'm sorry, killing 69 people and injuring 180. They kill 69 people, most of whom are shot in the back. That's an important detail that you need. They're shot in the back as they're trying to leave. Of the 69 who are killed, 29 of them are children. And if you look in this picture, they're children, right? These are children. They weren't counting teenagers as children. They were counting teenagers as adults. These are kids, right? These kids look like they're probably 10 or 11. The result of the Sharpeville massacre, this Sharpeville massacre is all over the news. The world is already looking at South Africa because of the treason trial, and now they have this massacre as well happening at the same time. This gets used, the judges in the trial use this as evidence that the cops are out of control. And the judges say, police force, you're out of control. We're throwing this out. You guys are being crazy. This massacre is also going to make things much, much worse. Much, much worse. It's a turning point, right? First, the international community. This is where the international community is really, really going to look at South Africa and say, we don't want to work with these people. Okay, most of Western Europe at this point is going to look at South Africa and say, no, we're out. France, Germany, Spain, Italy, right? France, Germany, Spain, Italy, Ireland, the UK, they all look at South Africa and they're all like, nope, we're done. We're done with you. We don't want to work with you. Okay. The United States, unfortunately, is going to react in a conflicted way. President Kennedy is going to condemn this, but a lot of US senators are going to cheer for this. And they're going to say this is great. That a lot of US senators and congressmen are going to say that this is great. I'll give you 3 guesses where those senators are from, what part of the country of the US they're from, right? This is 1961, right? So we can pretty much guess. I'll give you a hint. They're not the senator from Massachusetts, right? It's not the Californian senators that are saying that, of course. Of course, it's the Virginians and the Georgians and the Alabamans, of course. Unsurprisingly, the United States is going to continue to disappoint you for the rest of this class period, for the rest of this unit, basically, because as we get going, every time apartheid gets worse and worse, the United States is going to stand with apartheid, is going to stand on the side of apartheid for most of it. Yeah. For most of this, the United States is going to do this, right? Europe turns away, but the United States does not. All right. The next big thing that happens here, the trial happens, right? They're released from the trial. But this is a radicalizing event for the opposition, a radicalizing event for the opposition. The opposition, the anti-apartheid forces now are going to form the new organization called the new organization called Umkhonto weSizwe. All right, so Umkhonto weSizwe is a group that I already mentioned once before. I mentioned them once before, but now here they are officially. They're founded by this man here, Robert Sobukwe. He's the primary founder, but we're going to have these other founders as well. This is a group that is moving away from the nonviolent protest methods of the ANC, and they are going to be moving in towards what we would call terrorism. Okay, they are going to commit between 1961 and 1963. They're going to create 190 acts of sabotage. Most of these, about half of them, are going to be blowing up train tracks. About half of them are going to be blowing up train tracks, but some of them are going to be like burning cop cars or blowing up like a guard station, stuff like that, right? Sometimes it'll be like setting a fire. Sometimes it'll be an explosion. Other times it'll be like jamming tools into like mining equipment to shut the mining equipment down, to break the mining equipment, right? So it's various forms of sabotage. The most common one is blowing up train tracks. Most of the leadership of that ANCYL, the youth league, right? The ANCYL doesn't exist anymore. They became the ANC, right? But those individuals now are all becoming Umkhonto we Sizwe, right? Including Nelson Mandela. Here's Mandela in the picture here. There's Mandela in the picture. Now, this is very, very important that you get this. In the early days of Umkhonto we Sizwe, they do not kill anyone. Okay, they do not kill anybody. And they have, their leadership is kind of split. Robert Sobukwe is a pretty extreme guy. He's a pretty extreme guy, and he is going to actually kind of advocate for killing people. He's going to advocate for like attacking cops and stuff. Mandela is going to be a cooling effect, right? He's going to have this kind of cooling effect to him. Mandela and a bunch of the other, like Sisulu, Walter Sisulu and stuff, like Mandela is going to be this like cooling effect on the group, where whenever the group says that they want to go blow up a police station, right, Mandela talks them down and says, okay, we'll blow up the car outside, right? That he's constantly trying to drag them down into like vandalism and the destruction of property instead of hurting people. Okay, and he has this kind of regulating cooling effect through this time period. This matters because he's pretty soon going to be removed from the situation, right? This is the other thing that you need here. The abbreviation for Umkhonto we Sizwe is MK. MK. That's the abbreviation that you can use on your essays. You can use it on your essays, right? You can use it on the essay in the spring as well, MK. The abbreviation, I think it's a Xhosa abbreviation. Like it's a translation to Xhosa and then they abbreviate it. I think it is. It might be an Afrikaans abbreviation. It's not English though. It's not English. It doesn't match anything in English, right? But it doesn't matter. Newspapers, textbooks, books, your discussion reading this week, all of them use the term MK, and you absolutely can too. But just like any other abbreviation on the essay, what do you have to do the very first time you use it? You have to break it out, right? So the very first time you use it, you must write Umkhonto we Sizwe and then in parentheses MK. From that point forward, you can say MK. Are we all good? Give me a thumbs up if you understand. Okay. I don't want to see MK on your essay without breaking it out. I won't count it because they won't count it in May, so I won't count it either. Fair enough? Okay. All right. Well, as you guys can probably predict, as soon as MK starts doing the sabotage and they start blowing up train tracks and guard stations and cars and things like that, of course, what's going to happen is the cops are going to attack them. So we're going to get the Rivonia trial. The Rivonia trial, it ends in 1964. It goes from 62 to 64. So the South African police, SAP, the South African police, they raid this farm called Lily's Leaf Farm. It's this farm right here. They raid this farm, and this farm was used by MK leadership in order to plan their attacks. Okay, the police tracked them. They were listening to them. They were like listening in on radios. They found out who it was. They raided the farm and they arrested all of these people here on this list. Okay, I like to take a moment and kind of point out that this is a fairly diverse list, actually. Right? We've got white Jewish people. We've got a white English guy. We got an Indian guy. We got some Xhosa, some Pedi, colored person, half Xhosa, half English, right? Like it's a pretty racially diverse person. We have this perception that it's all black resistance, and it's not. It isn't. It is not. That just isn't the fact. This trial is very public. This trial is on the cameras again. This trial is in the world's view. And this trial, the cops did their job on this trial. The cops had lots and lots of evidence. They did lots of evidence. They were not going to get embarrassed like they did on the last one. And so they're going to get their convictions here. Okay, Tiffany, In your best Nelson Mandela voice, can you read this for us, for the people?
Okay. During my lifetime, I have dedicated my life to the struggle of the African people. I have fought against white domination and I have fought against Black domination. I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society in which all people will live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It is an ideal for which I hope to live for and to see realized. But, my Lord, if it needs to be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die.
Thank you. So Mandela, during his defense, gives a 3-hour speech. And in that 3-hour speech, this is probably the most important paragraph of that 3-hour speech. But in that 3-hour speech, televised across the country, televised around the world, Mandela makes this case. This speech kind of solidifies Mandela's position in like the mythology of apartheid, right? He's going to be the martyr of the story, right? He's the man of peace who was dragged into this unwillingly, right? That's kind of the position he's going to hold. And in a lot of ways, he's going to be held up as this like idealized, heroic type figure that is, you know, maybe it's warranted, maybe it's, you know, unfair, right? This is where the movement gets kind of telescoped down into just this one man. It's kind of like if you ask people about the American civil rights movement, they're going to say it's the Martin Luther King story, right? But we understand that it's not, right? We understand that it's much more complex than that, right? Same thing here. They're going to say the anti-apartheid movement is the Nelson Mandela story, right? I need to point out to you that for 2 decades of opposition to apartheid, the 80s, the 70s, and the 60s, so 3 decades really, Mandela's in jail. He's in jail. He's not part of the story, right? He's in jail. And so he, you know, he's not part of the story in that regard, right? And so he is like this kind of figurehead person, but he's in jail, okay? Unsurprisingly, all of the Black people in the trial get life in prison. This may not shock you, I don't think. All the Black people in the trial get life in prison, and a couple of the white people do. Some of the other people get various degrees of, you know, a couple of years here or 10 years there, but they all get life in prison. Mandela is going to stay in prison until 1991 after apartheid gets collapsed and they pull him out of prison. Okay? Now, what do you expect, Manvith? What do you expect is going to happen to MK now that all their leadership has been arrested and thrown in jail?
It probably moves to like with to the other members or of MK.
Okay.
Like the other members are, I guess, promoted to leadership and they continue sabotaging
Okay.
in the name of.
What do you think the likelihood is that MK just stops?
Not very likely, I don't think.
Basically zero.
Yeah.
Basically zero. I think we can all agree with Manvith on that MK is not going to just like stop. They're going to be like, oh, you're right. Apartheid, you know, you guys are making some good points. We're going to stick with it, right? This is your next letter down, should be, I think, CC. Is that right? The trial's BB, if I remember correctly. So CC needs to be Umkhonto Wesizwe becomes radicalized. Umkhonto Wesizwe becomes radicalized. Now, this is where we're going to move into a new chapter of Umkhonto Wesizwe. Umkhonto Wesizwe is going to be under the leadership of Oliver Tambo. Oliver Tambo, the guy, if you remember him, he had a beautiful mustache. And look at that. Hubba hubba, right? He has this beautiful mustache. It's going to be under the leadership of Oliver Tambo and Ruth First and Joe Slovo, some of those other leaders. They were not in the Rivonia trial, right? Robert Sobukwe wasn't there either. Okay, they weren't there. They didn't get arrested. Tambo, Ruth First, and Joe Slovo, they smuggled out of the country. Tambo is going to lead Umkhonto Wesizwe. Joe Slovo and Ruth First are going to be more like writing books and essays and stuff. They're going to be like the intellectual leaders of the movement. Okay. Robert Sobukwe is going to get killed later on. He gets killed in a scuffle with police later on. But Umkhonto we Sizwe is going to morph from a domestic political group to an international paramilitary organization. They're going to undergo this morphing into an international paramilitary organization, right? In camouflage with army gear, right? They're going to start up active recruiting throughout South Africa. They're also going to start recruiting Black people from other countries as well. They're going to set up recruitment camps in Botswana, in Zimbabwe, in Swaziland. They're going to set up recruitment camps in all these other countries. They're going to set up massive training camps. They're going to go train in Cuba with Fidel Castro's groups. They're going to go train in Libya. Libya is actually going to be one of the largest training camps for them up in the top of Africa, right? Up like thousands of miles away from South Africa. They're going to be training up in Libya. Muammar Gaddafi, the dictator of Libya who rules Libya for 40 years, he's going to be training them on how to become warriors. These guys are going to be these guys are going to be funded by the USSR, by the Soviet Union. A lot of the leadership go up to Moscow and they get political and financial support. And so the Soviet Union starts to give them guns, ammunition, supplies, and money, right? And the Soviet Union is going to start training them as like communist soldiers who are going to come back to South Africa. A lot of the members, they fight in the Angolan Civil War. Angola is a country just north of South Africa, right? The Soviet Union is going to overthrow the government and it's going to trigger a civil war there. So a lot of the MK people go and fight in Angola and they learn how to fight there and then they come back down to South Africa, okay? So this is turning into something closer to an army, something closer to an army. They're going to continue to do terrorist activity, okay? They're also going to very famously recruit women. They're going to start a really active woman recruiting, a very active program of recruiting women. Rahul, why do you think they want to prioritize recruiting women?
I have the more the merrier.
Well, the more the merrier, but what else? Michael Zong, what do you think, man?
Honestly, I have no clue.
Oh, come on now. Drew's trying to answer every question. Let's get someone who's not Drew. Why women? Are you guys all so sexist that you can't conceive why they would want women? No wonder Tiffany's the only woman here. You guys all scared them away. All right, Wentao, what do you think, man?
Is it to get the support from women's rights movement as well?
No, not really. Not really. All right, Drew, what do you think, man?
Is it so they can do various I don't know how to say it, but female tasks like medical field and stuff like that?
No, 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 no. All right. The women don't get stopped and searched by cops. They're trying to capitalize on sexism, right? They're trying to take advantage of the sexism that if you have a woman walking down the street with a dress on, right, and the cops are searching people, they'll look in her purse, they'll look in her bag, but they won't touch her inner thighs, right? And her inner thighs are where she has two guns strapped onto her inner thighs, right? That the women are not getting searched. It becomes a pretty regular tactic that you'll have like a woman pushing a baby stroller, right? A woman pushing a baby stroller, and then you'll have like a couple of guys behind her. The cops will wave her by and then stop the guys and search the guys, right? The guys are totally clean, but she has 3 grenades in the stroller. And they didn't bother to search the stroller because they're not going to pick up the baby and find the grenades underneath the baby, right? Or they're not going to look up her dress to see the weapons that she has hidden there, right? This is actually a communist tactic. In the Soviet Union before, when they were overthrowing the Tsar, the communists used to do this pretty regularly. Women were very common assassins because the women would be able to hide weapons, you know, in their upper inner thighs or like under their boobs or something like that. Like the women would be able to hide weapons in places where men aren't going to search them. And since there are no women cops, no one will search them. They just kind of wave them through, or they really lightly kind of pat their shoulders or something. You know what I mean? Because you don't touch another man's wife, right? And so they're basically tapping into this sexism, right? And they'll say, "Oh, women can't cause problems. Women won't do this." This happened as early or as late as like 2003. 2004, a bunch of women hijacked a plane in Russia, and they were Chechen women terrorists in Russia, and Russia didn't search the women. They just waved them in. And then the women had guns and bombs on them on a plane that left out of Moscow after 9/11, right? And the women took over the plane and they bombed the plane and they killed 300 people, right? So they're tapping into this sexism, tapping into that sexism. It's an old communist tactic. They did the same thing in the Algerian Civil War when Algeria was gaining its independence from France. They trained Algerian women who, it's Muslims, right? And so they're all wearing like hijabs and stuff like that. And if you're going to make the women cover up in multiple layers, well, there's lots of places for her to hide weapons there, right? And especially if you're not going to search them. Okay, so Nkonte Bwesizwe has become a paramilitary organization. It's become directly influenced and supported by the Soviet Union, right? It's working with Libya and Cuba and Angola and all these other groups. It's also directly recruiting women in order to get women into places where men can't go, right? And lastly, they're going to start murdering people. And a lot of these murders are going to be bad, okay? They're going to start targeting police forces, police officers. They're going to be breaking into cops' houses in the middle of the night and killing the cops. They're going to be doing this a lot. There's one really famous incident where MK people started shooting at the front of a cop's house, chief of police's house, and the chief of police went to the front of the house with his gun and he was trying to shoot at them. And while they did that, they threw a grenade into the back window, and the grenade landed in the baby's crib and blew up his baby. Okay, this is the resistance now, right? This is why I made such a big deal about saying that Nelson Mandela had that cooling effect, right? Nelson Mandela was cooling them down. Well, he's in jail now. He's in jail. He's not there to cool them down. And so now we have these other stronger forces, louder voices who are okay with this. Okay. The dates that you need for this is MK is going to stay active all through the 1970s. So late 60s and 1970s. By the 1980s, they're going to be, dying out. Okay. All right. I think that's a good place to stop for today. I think it's a good place to stop. Do you guys have any questions about any of these things that we covered or anything else?
I have a question for something kind of unrelated. It
Yeah,
was the college discussion. So I submitted it and then I got a 0, and the comment that you wrote was can't see what class it was, and I don't know like why I don't know what that means. So I can't really fix the grade.
Yeah, I think I just can't see what the schools were, like the school logos, like they didn't upload properly. Is that probably what it was? I can look
Oh
at that.
yeah, I think I
That's
fixed
probably
the picture issue. So
okay.
yeah, that's
I can
fixed
look
now.
at it again. I'll look at it again, Mike.
All right, thanks.
I'll look at it again. Michael.
Cool.
I had a question on the test that we're like supposed to take. Is it the exact same format as like the previous test that we've taken? Like, are we not supposed to use our notes and stuff like that?
Yeah, don't use your notes. Treat it like a test. There's a timer on it. I can't really stop you from using your notes. I'll just point out that you're kind of cheating yourself, right? So don't use your notes. Treat it like a test. If you can't do it without your notes, then you don't know it well enough to take the test in May. Is what I'll say, right? You need to treat it like a test. Do it. It's 2 essay questions. I chose the questions. You pick the ones you want out of there, just like the other tests. Exactly the same format. Okay. Have you guys looked at the questions? Do you have problems or comments on the questions? Do you have issues on the prompts? Are you sure? The in-person classes had issues.
I'm wondering about the women in I believe it's Q
Right,
is the letter of the prompt.
right. Here, let me share it with you real quick so we can all see. Let me see here. Okay, so here's their prompts. All right, so analyze the role of women in South Africa and the National Party's consolidation of power, right? So we have a couple of things here. I'm thinking a lot about that. I'm thinking a lot about the discussion assignment that you guys had a couple of weeks ago, the apartheid Afrikaner women assignment, where the women were helping consolidate Afrikaner apartheid policies in the towns. That's what I'm thinking about that when I wrote the question. I'm also thinking about how the women's vote movement, the women's suffrage movement gets kind of rolled into apartheid, right? Why do women get the vote in South Africa? Is it because women's rights is such a strong movement? No, it's because white Afrikaners want more votes. And so they figure that the white women will also vote to support Afrikaner stuff, right? So that's what I had in my mind, Raul.
I had a question on T the most. That one was kind of confusing to me.
Okay,
Like, what war are you talking
Yeah,
about?
so I left it open. I have some students that are choosing to pick one war and just give me like information on that. Other students are going to pick like the Second Boer War and World War I and World War II, right? You can do all three wars and just tell me how they're similar. You could pick one war and give me all that information there. Like, I'm leaving that open to you. You guys can use that how you want. Okay. And about half the students are picking one war and about half the students are picking three. So, are we good? Who else? Rahul? Anyone else?
Yeah, with the to what extent questions, if we say like, let's say the correct answer, like based on what you know as a teacher and whatnot, is not in accordance with what we say, will that like, let's say you're like, well, no, I think it's to a very large extent this, but then on the essay we say to a very minor extent, then what would happen?
So the question, so that kind of a question, all of that is determined on like the evidence that you present, and how you make your argument, right? So if
Okay.
you're going to tell me that the creation of apartheid is not really an ethnic problem and that it's more of an economic choice than an ethnic choice, right? If you give me evidence that it's economic, and you could say, the creation of apartheid was primarily economic because of A, B, and C. However, there was also this, ethnic component to it, right? I could buy that argument, sure, right? It all depends on if your evidence makes sense and how you're arguing it. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to avoid superlative statements where you're saying something along the lines of like, the most important was this, or the only thing was this, the only reason this happened was this reason, right? You're going to want to avoid statements like that because that's where students trap themselves into a wrong answer, right? You want to leave caveats on there, and you're going to say like, an important force to consider when creating apartheid was this, right? Because if you tell me it's an important force, then I'll say, yeah, it is important. Yeah, I get that. You see what I'm saying, Ro?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. The bell rang and I have people coming in. Do we have any other problems, questions, comments? Drew? Yeah, Drew.
It's not related to the test, just in towards the history test, the final test we're gonna have in May. Are we eventually gonna go over the format of the paper, or like you're gonna give us some practice tests?
We will. We will.
Okay.
Yeah. So the format of paper one, this is your paper one, right? The format of paper 1 is closer to like a DBQ that you guys took with AP US. It's not quite a DBQ. It's like a less stupid version of a DBQ. And so, yeah, we will do some practice ones on that. I think the content is more important. The content is more important. So once we've mastered the content. The test that I've been giving you is very close to the way that paper 2 and paper 3 are, the formatting for paper 2 and paper 3. Paper 1 has a different formatting. It's the DBQ style formatting. And as we get closer, we'll do some practice on those. Right?
The paper 3 is just, so paper 3 is just what we learned last year in 11th grade, right?
Yeah, plus all of the US civil rights stuff that we did at the beginning of this year. So paper 3 is your history of the American paper, right? And so the way, we'll get to it as we get closer, but the history of the Americas paper, what they'll do is they'll have like 10 sections of American history, and you need to pick questions from like 2 of those sections, right? And so it'll have like Mexican history, Canadian history, American Civil War history, American Civil Rights history, Progressive Era history, World War II history, Cold War time history, right? So you'll be like, I suspect all of you are going to choose a US civil rights one because I've spent so much time on it, right? I suspect all of you will choose that, and then you'll choose something else that you did last year.
So are we reviewing any of like US history in this school year, or is that something that we should do on our own?
Other than my entire first quarter?
Oh yeah, I mean like the Civil War and stuff like that.
I'm not planning on reviewing any of that stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not planning on reviewing any of that stuff. And as we get closer, I do plan on having a couple of weeks prior to the exam where we'll do some practice tests, including those questions, right? So you can get an idea of what it is. I think that you'll find that a lot of my civil rights stuff covers a significant portion of that paper 3 topic as well. I think you'll find that there's a pretty significant overlap. Okay, are we good to go?
One quick thing.
One last one. All right, Ro.
At the end of the Second Boer War,
Yeah.
the Zulu, they were put in concentration camps, right?
Yeah, during the war they were. Yeah.
During the war.
During
why were they put in the concentration camps?
So because the Zulus tried to uprise against the whites, taking the division between the whites, that the Zulus tried to uprise and get their independence. And so the whites had to take them out too, right? In some ways it became kind of a 3-way war that, the Zulus ended up fighting both groups of whites. So, yeah.
So in that war, the Zulus did not try to fight with the Boers and the British at any point.
No, not really. Not really.
That was earlier when they were trying to pit them against each other.
You're correct. You're correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the first Boer War. Cool. All right. I will see you all later. Remember, the test is by Thursday night. Okay? Peace out.